in Islam. Why? Because, a lot of times when we talk about religion, people will say, yeah, but you're talking about abstract thought, or you're talking about a set of beliefs. But how did Muslims actually act? Just as we can say, how did Christians actually act? And regrettably, we can go back and pick out, and there are, the negative images, the negative people, the negative examples. But we also have the great leaders, the enlightened leaders. And Saladin, or Saladin, represents that kind of enlightenment. When we look at the way in which the Muslims were viewed, those who were following this Muslim ruler, by even the Christian army and by the head of the Christian army, he was very well respected in his own time. Not only as a great warrior, but a man with a great sense of chivalry and moral code. And indeed, when the Muslims were victorious, he did not do what many at that time would have done, and that is, slaughter the soldiers, slaughter the women and children, but in fact spared those who were conquered.
In September 1192, during the siege of Acre, King Richard the Lionheart gained a lasting respect for Saladin. When Richard fell sick, Saladin sent him his own physician, Ibn Maymun, the Maimonides, to treat him. Along with this health care, he frequently sent him ice to cool down his fever and plum fruits that were necessary for his recovery. Saladin went beyond justice in helping Christian women find their husbands. He ordered his soldiers to search for their missing ones. Those whose husbands or guardians were determined dead, Saladin ordered they receive compensation in currency from the treasury as if they were killed, not as soldiers of war, but by error or accident. During the siege of Acre, several soldiers were captured. Among them was an old man who was so old that he was toothless and could hardly walk. Saladin questioned him as to why he was there. The old man said that he had no thought but to make a pilgrimage to the Church of the Resurrection in Jerusalem. Saladin was so touched by his answer and condition that he ordered that the old man be escorted to Jerusalem to fulfill his worship dream. Saladin entered the annals of Western history as a magnanimous and respected figure. Saladin's chivalry and high standards were at the soul of the plays and romances created by Sir Walter Scott. The French historian René Grousset wrote this about Saladin's character. It is equally true that his generosity, his piety, devoid of fanaticism, that flower of liberality and courtesy which had been the model of our old chroniclers, won him no less popularity in Frankish Syria than in the lands of Islam. One thing that Islam brought which was revolutionary were rights to women. In the societies in much of Europe, Asia, and Africa, women's rights were non-existent until modern times. With the rise of Islam in the early 600s, the Arabian woman was recognized as equal partner to man. Islam had granted the woman a dignified role and established her right to inherit, marry, and divorce. Prophet Muhammad said, "Women are the partners of men."
In the days before the Prophet, men were really looking for virgins to marry. When a woman was married, she couldn't remarry. Once she had been divorced or once her husband had died, she was left unable to marry again.
Women were certainly second-class citizens. With the advent of Islam, Islam allowed women the right to inherit. It gave women the right to their own earnings, and it gave women the right to accept a marriage, not have it imposed on them, and the right to request a divorce when they want it.
And if women are given the same rights as males or men to education, then no woman can be held back.
Whatever applies to a man applies to a woman in religious duties and in relationships.
A woman can be a doctor, a lawyer. She can have her own business. She can be an entrepreneur. She can work in a laboratory. She can do anything that any other woman can do.
The Quran names several chapters in honor of women. Al-Nisa, or the woman, is one chapter, or as the late Sheikh Ahmad Kuftaro taught, in defense of women. This chapter conveys many subjects regarding women's affairs and rights. Another chapter in the Quran devoted to women is named Al-Mujadila, or the woman with plea. In this chapter, Allah narrates the story of a woman who came to Prophet Muhammad complaining about her husband. The woman did not like the ruling of the Prophet in her case. She kept returning to the Prophet, arguing her case until a revelation in her behalf was revealed, changing the ruling of the Prophet in her favor. There is yet another chapter in the Quran named Mary, after the Virgin Mary, mother of Jesus. These chapters constitute a giant step in the liberation of women from the earlier beliefs of superstition. Men shall have a share of what their parents and kinsmen leave. Women shall have a share of what their parents and kinsmen leave. Whether it be little or much, it is legally theirs. Quran 4:7. Prophet Muhammad said, "Only a man of noble character will honor women, and only a low, vile man will dishonor them." Because of their role in home education and upbringing of children, Islam gives mothers greater honor than fathers. A man came to Prophet Muhammad and asked him, "O Messenger of God, who rightfully deserves the best treatment from me?" "Your mother," replied the Prophet. "Who is next?" asked the man. "Your mother," said the Prophet. "Who comes next?" the man asked again. "Your mother," replied the Prophet. "And who is after that?" insisted the man. "Your father," said the Prophet. Prophet Muhammad also said, "Heaven lies beneath the feet of mothers." Muslims believe obeying and serving mothers is a key to deserving paradise. God commands the obedience of parents. We have enjoined on man respect and kindness to his parents. In pain did his mother bear him, and in pain did she give him birth. Quran 46:15. Muslim women have risen to the highest government ranks. Salama, Prophet Muhammad's wife, advised the Prophet in important political and legislative matters. In the peaceful Treaty of Hudaybiyah, the Prophet acted upon her advice in making the treaty a reality. Mrs. Benazir Bhutto was the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Mrs. Megawati Sukarnoputri is the 5th President of Indonesia. Bangladesh had as its Prime Minister Mrs. Hasina Wajid, and the 2nd Vice President of Iran is Ibtikar Masumi. While women should be responsible for raising the family, Islam teaches that the man should be responsible for the well-being of the family. These duties are based upon only on his physical ability of management and livelihood, not on superiority because he is a man. Women shall with justice have rights similar to those exercised against them, although men have a degree and responsibility above women. Allah is mighty and wise. Quran 2:28. Just like a pilot is responsible before the law for the safety of an airplane and the passengers, the man is given the responsibility of his family before God. Otherwise, both parents mutually share the management of the family, just like the pilot and co-pilot manage the aircraft in the air. Also, it takes hydrogen and oxygen to make a particle of water, but neither of the elements is superior to the other. The two elements only complement one another. Muslim women wear the scarf as a means of modesty. The scarf does not construe a limitation or incapacity with respect to her, nor does it make her inferior to man or other women. In the centuries before Islam, a man could have as many wives as he chose. Islam limited polygamy to 4 wives. To prescribe only 4 wives is a limitation, not a license. Unless the man is able to support and deal justly with all of his wives, he should remain monogamous. Many believe that polygamy is a means of social and financial assistance available for the unfortunate women. Similar to the financial assistance programs provided for single mothers by a particular state, Polygamy serves not only as a financial aid, but psychological and intimate as well. As well as the spiritual, social, and political contributions of Islam, Muslims believe that the quest for knowledge is an integral part of their faith. This philosophy opened the way for art and science that eventually led the way to the Renaissance.
Islam invented the book. It began with the word iqra, reading, using the pen. And so the Muslims became big converts to learning. And so not only were they doing the sciences, but they were doing a lot of literature. The Arabian Nights, the poetry of Omar Khayyam, for example, Romeo and Juliet is directly tied to the Romantic era. Cervantes' writings, Defoe's work, Robinson Crusoe has an Islamic origin. In terms of which sciences the Muslims invented, they invented all of the basic sciences according to Briffault, Goldstein, Durant, and others. That includes astronomy, physics, geometry, geography, geology, the science of algebra, we know that, also the science of trigonometry, and medicine, pharmacy are all Islamic productions.
Muslims believe contemplating the universe is a way to reach to God. The Quran points to signs on earth and heaven that make people think, investigate, and explore. Behold, God said, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, in the alteration of the night and the day, in the sailing of the ships through the ocean for the profit of mankind, in the rain which God sends down from the skies, and the life which he gives there to an earth that is dead, in the beasts of all kinds that he scatters through the earth, in the ordinance of the winds, and the clouds obedient between heaven and earth. These indeed are signs for people who have sense. Quran 2:164. Prophet Muhammad has said, seek knowledge, even if you have to go to China for it.
The Muslims actually went out, found knowledge in each culture, and brought it into a continuum.
Seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave, said the Prophet Muhammad. He also said, lo, the angels offer their wings to the seeker of knowledge.
The Hindu culture came in with the Persian, then with the Arabic, and then with the Greek and the European. It all bent together. The ancient pharaonic culture, all that knowledge came together. That led to the sciences. It was the Quran that leveled the playing field. That's the difference.
The Islamic philosophy of fraternity and learning for all opened the way for other religious minorities within the Islamic dynasty to grow and prosper.
In the early Umayyad period, we find that Christians and Jews were part of court life, that indeed they held responsible positions within the Umayyad court, and tradition also tells us that Christians and Muslims at times prayed together.
Muslims believe the Quran considers earthly issues important as well. The Quran names chapters after what constitutes the nerve of the economy in Arabia at the time of its revelation. The cattle is an example, or in modern terms, the cattle industry. Other names, such as the ore, or as the late Sheikh Ahmad Kuftaro translated as ore and mining, and Saba, in reference to the people of Yemen who built the Marid Dam for future agricultural and industrial projects.
You will see so many surahs named after the cosmos, named after the sun, the stars, the moon, the wind. A long chapter called the cattle, for the Muslim to study the benefit of the cattle.
Prophet Muhammad encouraged his followers not to be financially dependent on others, but to seek work and thrive. After all, he was a merchant himself. His inspirations in this regard are, poverty can be as bad as disbelieving in God. The Muslim who gives in charity is better than the one who receives charity. And he used to make this prayer, our Lord, help us achieve prosperity in this life and in the hereafter.
Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, says, when the person dies, all of